Imagine this. It's 20,000 years ago. The sun just went down, the fire is crackling, and somewhere in a dark cave, people are laughing. Not screaming, not fighting off a saber-toothed tiger. Laughing. They're drunk on fermented honey, high on something they found growing near a dead tree, and one guy is about to lose a bet that involves wrestling a wild boar piglet for fun. Yeah, cavemen partied. And honestly, some of it makes our Friday nights look tame. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you're going to look at the Stone Age completely differently. And trust me, the last story about the cave painting gone wrong is the one nobody talks about. So let's get one thing straight first. We grew up with this image of early humans as miserable, grunting creatures who did nothing but hunt, freeze, and die young. Survival 24/7. No time for fun, right? Wrong? Dead wrong. Anthropologists who've studied modern hunter-gatherer tribes, the closest living mirror we have to our ancestors, found something wild. These people often work less than us. Some estimates put their work week at around 15 to 20 hours of actual hunting and gathering. The rest? Storytelling, games, naps, socializing. Basically the Stone Age version of Netflix and chill, except the chill involves a fire pit, and the Netflix is a guy doing impressions of a mammoth. Because here's the thing, boredom is ancient. Humans have always needed to fill the hours, and where there's boredom, there's creativity. And where there's creativity, things get weird. Let's start with something that'll blow your mind, cavemen gambled. Archaeologists have dug up carved bones and pebbles dating back tens of thousands of years that look suspiciously like dice. Some are even weighted unevenly, meaning someone, somewhere, was already trying to cheat at games before games even had names. Picture a group of hunters sitting around after a long day, betting on bone throws. Loser skins the next kill. Winner gets the good seat by the fire. Some historians even think this is where the concept of luck was born, the idea that invisible forces decide outcomes. That's a pretty wild thing to invent by accident while just trying to kill time. And it wasn't just dice. There's evidence of early board game, like patterns scratched into rocks, grids, holes, markings that don't match anything practical, like hunting maps. Just games, lines drawn for the sake of fun, possibly the ancestor of games like Mancala that are still played today in parts of Africa and Asia. Now, here's a question for the comments. If you had to invent a Stone Age game from scratch using just rocks, bones, and dirt, what would you make? I genuinely want to read your ideas down below, because some of you are going to come up with something better than what they had. Now let's talk about the original concert venue, the cave. Caves with the best paintings, the ones tourists pay to see today, also have insane acoustics, like eerily good. Researchers actually mapped where ancient art was placed inside caves and found a pattern. The most decorated spots are also the spots with the strongest echo and resonance. That's not a coincidence. That's a venue. Picture this. Dozens of people crammed into a cave, firelight flickering across painted bison and horses on the walls, someone banging a hollow mammoth bone like a drum, another blowing into a carved bird bone flute. Yes, actual flutes have been found, over 40,000 years old, and the whole group chanting or singing while shadows from the fire make the painted animals look like they're moving. That's not a documentary reenactment. That might genuinely be the first nightclub in human history. And then there's storytelling. Long before books, before writing, stories were the main entertainment. Hunters who survived insane encounters, a near miss with a bear, a hunt gone wrong, a flood that swept away half the camp. Those stories got told and retold around the fire, probably getting more dramatic with every telling. Sound familiar? That's basically the original "You won't believe what happened to me" video format. We just added cameras. Here's where things get fun and slightly chaotic. Cavemen didn't just hunt animals. There's growing evidence they kept some around just because. Wolf pups raised by humans tens of thousands of years ago is one of the leading theories for how dogs were born, not purely for hunting help, but because a friendly wolf pup running around camp is honestly just entertaining. Kids probably played with them the same way kids do now. Some of the earliest dog burials show them buried with care, even with little items beside them, like they meant something more than just a tool. But it wasn't all cuddly. Imagine a group of bored young hunters deciding the best way to prove themselves wasn't fighting a predator for food. It was fighting one just to see who could get closest and survive. Some researchers genuinely believe early humans engaged in dangerous games involving wild animals, less about survival and more about showing off. Basically, Stone Age extreme sports, except instead of a skateboard, it's a wild boar, and instead of a hospital, it's nothing. There was no hospital. Okay, let's get into the part you're probably most curious about. Did cavemen get drunk? Almost certainly, yes. Fruit left too long ferments naturally. Honey mixed with water and left in a container ferments into something like mead. Our ancestors didn't need to invent alcohol. Nature handed it to them. And they just had to be brave enough to drink the weird-smelling liquid sitting in a hollow log for 2 weeks. Some anthropologists even argue that this accidental discovery played a role in why humans started settling down and eventually farming, the desire for a steady supply of something fermentable. Yes, you read that right. There's a real theory that we may have invented farming partly to keep the buzz going. As for smoke, there's also evidence ancient humans burned certain plants and herbs, not just for cooking, but possibly for their effects when inhaled, used in rituals around fire. We can't know for sure exactly which plants or how often, but the pattern of burnt plant residue near ceremonial sites suggests it wasn't purely practical. So yeah, the very first party drinks and smoke breaks in human history were basically improvised, accidental, and probably resulted in some legendary hangovers nobody wrote down because, well, no one had invented writing yet. And finally, here's the story I promised you. Some cave paintings have layers, newer art drawn directly over older art, sometimes decades or centuries apart. One theory researchers love to bring up: some of these overlapping doodles weren't sacred rituals at all. Some might have just been bored teenagers scratching crude shapes onto walls already covered in serious, careful art, basically prehistoric graffiti drawn over a masterpiece. Imagine spending weeks carefully painting a herd of horses by torchlight, only for some kid years later to scribble a stick figure with antlers right over your best horse. Stone Age vandalism. Somewhere, an ancient artist is rolling in their grave. So here's what we actually learned today. Cavemen weren't just surviving, they were gambling, dancing, drinking, raising pets, showing off in front of wild animals, and probably ruining each other's art on purpose. Entertainment didn't start with the TV, or the arcade, or even the campfire story. It started the moment humans had 5 free minutes and an imagination. And honestly, the more you dig into this stuff, the more it feels like nothing's really changed. We just swapped bone dice for phones and cave walls for Instagram. If this kind of deep dive into the weird, wild side of history is your thing, hit subscribe, because next time, I'm covering something even crazier that historians usually leave out of the textbooks. You don't want to miss it. See you in the next one.